You don't hear people brag about Generation X. They don't dominate headlines. They don't flood social feeds. They don't post daily reminders about resilience. And yet, they're everywhere. Running teams, fixing broken systems, holding families together without asking for credit. Born between the late 1960s and early 1980s, Gen X grew up in a strange middle space. Too young for the post-war boom, too old to be raised by smartphones. They watched the world change gears in real time. One year, it was rotary phones and library cards. The next, dial-up internet and office email. That constant shift trained their minds to stay flexible. Psychologists describe this as adaptation under uncertainty. When people are raised during unstable periods, they become skilled at spotting change early. Gen X learned that systems break, rules expire, institutions wobble. So instead of expecting permanence, they learned to stay mobile, emotionally, financially, professionally. This is why many of them seem reserved, not cold, controlled. They listen before speaking, watch before committing, wait to see how things unfold. That isn't hesitation, it's pattern recognition. They grew up through recessions, scandals, and global tension. Trust wasn't automatic, it had to be earned. Another defining trait? Low tolerance for chaos. When things fall apart, Gen X doesn't panic. They compartmentalize. Psychological research links this to early independence. Children who handle responsibility young often become adults who regulate stress quietly. They don't announce fear. They open a notebook. They solve the problem first and process emotions later, sometimes much later. That discipline creates strength, but it can also create distance. Many Gen Xers struggle to talk about vulnerability, not because they don't feel deeply, because they learned to keep moving, even when uncomfortable. You'll notice something else. They distrust hype, flashy promises, over-branding, corporate slogans. They grew up watching institutions oversell and under-deliver, so they default to skepticism. If something sounds too polished, they assume something's hiding underneath. That makes them tough negotiators, hard to manipulate, slow to be impressed. They don't trust charm, they trust results. In relationships, this shows up clearly. Gen X is loyal once they commit. They won't flood your phone with texts. But if you call at 2 in the morning, they show up. No posts, no announcements, just action. That loyalty comes from growing up in peer-driven worlds, friends who watched out for each other when adults were busy. Community wasn't digital, it was physical. Bikes in the driveway, knocking on doors, shared boredom. Which leads to another trait. Gen X knows how to be alone. No constant notifications, no endless scrolling. They learned to tolerate silence, to wait, to think. They developed a strong inner voice, the kind that weighs options before acting. Psychologists call this metacognition. Gen X just calls it thinking things through. They run scenarios in their heads. What if this fails? What if I move? What if I walk away? That's why they can seem cautious. But when they finally decide, they commit. At work, Gen X doesn't chase titles. They chase security through skill, expertise that transfers, abilities that survive restructuring. They watched entire industries disappear, factories close, companies collapse, careers evaporate. So they diversified long before side hustle became trendy. Not for glamour, for protection. They also dislike micromanagement. Give them a clear goal, then step back. They'll come back with a solution. Hover too closely? They disengage. This independence gets mistaken for aloofness. It isn't. It's efficiency. But beneath all that calm is something rarely mentioned. fatigue. Gen X bridged analog childhoods and digital adulthood, raised kids while learning new tech, cared for parents while navigating economic shocks. They adapted, again, and again, and again. They don't talk much about it. They just keep going. That may be their defining feature: quiet endurance. No spotlight, no applause. They work in the background, keeping systems running, families steady, institutions functional. They are transitional people, between eras, between worlds. Not loud, but stabilizing. And maybe that's why they're misunderstood. Because the most influential group in the room isn't always the noisiest. Sometimes it's the one quietly holding everything together.